Good morning, Andy. Yeah, I figured with the announcement for Fantasy Life, I'd want to get a little bit extra Fantasy Life in. How you doing today? All right, but as always, first things first. Okay, let's get into the video. So, hello and welcome. I'm Bronwyn Kenku, here for another episode of Backyard Progression. It's February 15th, and we were checking out last week, the 8th. Let's see how that goes. Um, I hopefully fixed the video quality. We will find out though. Haven't checked the footage quite yet. But even though it was very clear outside, it was very cold. And I was reminded today that um, it's days like today, it's actually like 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's warm out. It's nice. So and that's kind of why, like, a very distinct difference from like when I was a little kid. Like, it used to just be cold and miserable all through winter. Now we get this fake spring kind of era, and it's super weird, but it's having the opportunity to get outside, especially when it's been so cold and so ridiculous that we can actually get stuff done. And it's invigorating and wonderful to be outside again after it being so awful. So, it's kind of like the anniversary of me starting this whole big ass project to improve this place. And something really interesting happened with the flooding that happened over the past week. And I want to double check, like, make sure I'm not crazy here, because, like, it's easy enough to forget some things, and I'm pretty sure I'm right on this, but you can see we still have snow at this point, and you can imagine it's still rather cold, even though we're doing this whole frost thaw thing. Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. Wow. Um, you will see why that is a wow in like 15 minutes. So something there has dramatically changed, and it's unreasonable. Okay. So keep that waterfall in mind, cuz I like that waterfall. It was really like a cute little thing to come and check. Um so heading forward, uh it's nice to get out and do something, and like I think people are supposed to generally get 10 minutes of walking after each meal. And that really tracks for my system. Like, I feel like it really helps my blood sugar and just kind of like helps in digestion and processing of everything. And moreover, you just feel better afterwards. Like, it's kind of annoying for sure to get out and do something, especially when you're breaking into a habit because you want to do nice things for your body. And there's often a feel where you can't do anything after eating, like you get involved with stuff you're watching or different varieties of what was going on. So it's important to keep an open mind and like try to build new habits because especially when they're good for you, hopefully they will stick through and keep you involved and hopefully lead to better mental health and decision making. Oh, wow. So, um, so getting outside, I feel like has been really good for me. It's been really important for getting through the pandemic for sure. And that's when I really picked up and started going after this aggressively because there was just ample free time when I wasn't, stuck in a different state. um, yeah, that lockdown was weird. Anyway, um, I feel like there's so much more that we can do. There's so much that, like, having an entertainment industry that demands our attention and demands our uh, uh, our TV or our computer to be on and going really makes it hard to get outside. And that's part of why I latched onto podcasts so hard. Because you can have a podcast going while you're taking a walk or doing other stuff. And that works out really well. Like you get to engage and be a little bit more active in that. Um, it's it's so hard. This is so blurry. I'm trying to just like keep going, but it's almost hard to look at. But I didn't do a whole lot in the past week out here. Um, Yesterday was Valentine's Day, or Lupercalia if you celebrate. So it's important to um, take time and care for yourself. And while getting outside is caring for myself in some different ways, I took the time to just relax and have a good time for myself. Caught up on some stuff. Uh, loving Vox Machina. It's fantastic. Feels really, really like a good D&D group and things. But it's also because my shoulders have been killing me from doing a lot of splitting wood. Like I had mentioned in this video last week, there was a large log that we cut up that was crossing the creek, and I had used it, at least a couple times to walk over. But if it's actually damming up the creek and creating issues, then it's better off to not be there. So I finally got that burned down to nothing, and all of the different woods split and everything. So it was hell on my shoulders. So, and also a postscript, I did come back and get that piece of trash out with a pickaxe because I needed to get under it and like lift it up, kind of like nail and hammer. So that worked out pretty well. I was happy to get that out of there because like, and I talked about this a bit last week of when we pollute, when we just discard random trash, especially plastics and styrofoam, stick around. Like, I have physical evidence that it just sticks around. And it's annoying as hell. And I'll, like, seemingly can come through a untouched area, and then who knows how many years that bucket's been there or whatever it was, it's still there. It just doesn't biodegrade because that's how they're made. Useful in some aspects, really bad in other aspects. So that's why last week was called garbage, because I picked up some more. But flooding will always bring even more garbage. And it's just a problem. But I don't know quite how to fix it. Because too often there's a new flow of garbage coming through the creek. And I just have to kind of live with it. So, doing my best not to dwell on things that I cannot control. I pick up the garbage, I throw it away, do my own bit of work. I've talked previously in the benefits of having a walking stick. It's nice when you can find one that fits really well. You want it to basically come up to shoulder height. That feels the most wieldy. Really good for moving stuff out of the way and clearing your path. Because, like, if you duck down just a little bit, suddenly you're at shoulder height and your stick is as tall as you are. And you can use that to clear away different spaces and stay on top of, uh, having something that's going to be useful for you. Creek still super pretty with the icicles. Again, keep in mind that, but we've got a bit of damming going on here, different bits of leaves and debris, and this is how they actually dam something. You get little bits of sediment on top of the leaves and sticks and everything, so it ends up being more of an issue. And that's a little bit about what I'm talking about today, because serious amounts of gravel moved with the flood this time. And creek gravel has always been interesting to me, like the way rocks break down and pass through and travel creates a different floor for different spaces. And I imagine dramatically affects the wildlife therein, the crayfish, the frogs, any little fish or creatures that are in there. But too often, the sediment doesn't really get talked about because it's kind of whatever. People think of it as static, even though it's more consistently moving as the water flows and everything and it travels down. It can vastly change the nature of the creek, especially after a flood and all the sediment has moved. But then when the water level lowers, it creates some different pathing that the creek has to take to continue. And it will continue because that's how aggressive water is. It's always good to be kind cognizant and aware of the power of the elements in which you work. And water is incredibly diligent and will break different aspects of what you're doing, especially if you try to contain water. So having a sluice full of water that travels alongside here, I talked a little bit about ice flows and how having ice travel down a creek can be incredibly dangerous and powerful when it all moves together, especially when it's just starting in the flood. It it definitely leads the pack and clears the way for a lot of other stuff because it is just aggressive. So just showing like certain pieces of ice, even though things have mostly melted at this point, are really strong. And I think back to uh, Andy's stream, CBC Gamer, for those interested in checking him out. He was talking through falling into the ice and going through a lake, and it's a problem because, like I was saying, you can't find footing, you can't find a handhold to get back onto solid land, especially if the ice in front of you, you have to continue to break through to make progress. So you're constantly in a cycle. Got a nice little raccoon track. Love these little guys. So good. And it's fantastic. Uh, they're fantastic. They're falling through the ice, not so much. Uh, just the shock alone. Oof. So, also, just as a key thing in cold temperatures, be sure to not get wet, especially older folk, and that includes sweating, which is something a lot of people don't think about. Because if it's cold enough and you're sweating enough, you can have little frozen bits attached to yourself, and it seriously lowers your body temperature as sweating is already built to do. Ice bits. Um, so making sure that you're dry in the winter is of the utmost importance. Here is where the log used to lay. Um, so make sure if you do get your socks wet or whatever, you take them off, wring them out, do what you can. Preferably, wool is the uh, material of choice because it wicks away water. And I did come back here for this plastic bag as well. Got that out of there. Yeah, it's really rough out there, and it can be really dangerous. And yet we persist. And like I feel like when I was a kid, uh, there was a lot of like PSAs on quicksand in cartoons and stuff, but it could have been other things like falling through the ice and whatnot that would come up a little bit more for certain people, but um, a little bit harder to stage for sure. All the same, like, it's important to not worry about the things that are out of your control, like the garbage coming down the creek. I can't do anything about it. Just have to pick it up when it comes through, as this creek just generally goes. I've never followed it past this point, which is actually kind of funny thinking about it. Like, it's just so hard with people's property, you know? And we will get into this week's video, hopefully of better quality. Alright, This looks better. Yeah, okay. The wonders of having more frames. So, it's still hard because head shake is absolutely a thing. Okay. What's going on here? Huh. Anyway. Wonder if my camera got misaligned. That would suck. uh, okay. Or I'm just being careful because a family member had a small fall and they nearly broke their ankle because the mud is just ridiculous right now. But as you can see, a lot of the flooding is gone and we can kind of get into some different spaces. I wonder if I accidentally turned off like a widescreen or something. Like using the most of the lens. It's rough when you have to like look down a lot to make sure you're standing in good space. And when you've got a concern like that about falling and making sure you're on good footing, you end up looking down a lot more. So hopefully once I get out of this super muddy area, it'll be more intact. There's some more garbage to take care of, which I will probably go back through, if not today, then tomorrow after the doctor, whatever. Anyway, yeah, so hopefully this comes through okay, because this is huge. So moving back to our little waterfall, and there's, okay, it's just dammed up a little bit. Okay, that, whew. So you can see this area right here is where it usually is, and it's not flowing quite right. So all the same, a lot of the gravel did get moved around. So you'll see that as we kind of progress through the creek bits. It's kind of a shame that I don't get like a little viewfinder. Like if I was working this like an old school camera, I would have a better perception of where I'm going and what the video is going to look like, but I generally don't. So you can see some of the gravel settled there, but as usual, there's a fair amount here. But now on this side, like, we're getting a lot more than what was. And there's even more just a little further on. So we've got a nice little alcove here. Here. But now, just a little further, there's all of this gravel that's settled here. Like, had to get out, but like, it's wild. Like, that didn't used to be there. And environments are so frequently changing that it's just impressive to me how static they are in games, and just how dramatic all the moving pieces are that make it happen. So having the floods, having the riverbanks, the erosion, all of it are important pieces, and all of the science that goes behind it. It's super fascinating. So I am consistently amazed at the splendor of nature and how all of its systems are working in tandem for different effects. Super neat. Like, all of the foliage is giving safe haven for creatures that need to hibernate and hopefully not wake up too soon. It is real warm out, and I know the snow lilies are in full go, and it's just one of those situations where we are in this weird spring-like state, but we are still like 2 months away from spring. So it could create a lot of issues if stuff wakes up before it's supposed to, and or um, plants start progressing before they're supposed to. So keeping that in mind, it's scary to think about global warming, but at the same time, it's just partially being aware of what the norm is currently and moving with it, having the general effect to be part of the land and move with it. Also, there was some sumac fruit that was fallen. You can see it here. And it's a pretty prolific plant. It's not the greatest to be around, but I've heard you can make a really nice lemonade-like substance from it. So more power to you if that's a thing you're looking for in the world of snacking in the wild. I don't think you can eat it very easily because it's like a fuzzy little fruit thing, fruit pod. Um, but I know the lemonade stuff works out pretty well. Uh, grapevine, gotta toss somewhere. And it's just that little step of like trying to manage some of the invasive species and propagate the natural, what's local and everything. So always push for more awareness. And I think often that like I would really love to know a botanist or someone who knows like the area's wildlife really well to know um what's supposed to be here and what isn't, and what's the plants are good for and what, you know. So it would be great to better uh, have my space be more natural at the same time, which is wild to think about. I thought I saw something, but I didn't. Um, that even a space like this can be unnatural in some ways with different plants that aren't supposed to be here. Like, I'm pretty sure the grapes are invasive, but they're what this part of what this area is known for. Uh, kind of weird living on a wine trail, but at the same time, when animals eat them and then come over here into the woods, it's it creates a lot of these vines that aren't as effective at, you know, producing grapes. They're just trying to live their life. So they end up being kind of strewn about where birds get to land and nest and do their whole thing. So always actively trying to pull those and get them taken care of. But they are really pretty in some ways, like the older ones that are just so big. It's it's really tempting to keep them and have that like natural cordage hanging out. Because a lot of our trees, we don't have the poplar, we don't have a lot of the different fibrous trees to make a good rope from. Although, like, you can really make rope from any kind of fibers if you're dedicated enough. So, I don't know. It's a thing I think about more than I probably should. But it's definitely one of those things where they choke out a lot of plants. So having cut them and eventually are pulling them, making sure they get out of the tree line, is probably for the best. I'd like to get rid of the poison oak and sumac and ivy, but you know, that's just my own personal grudge against plants that make you itchy. And I've heard weird tales about people eating early leaves of the poison crew to gain a little bit of resistance to it. And I think that's incredibly fascinating, but no thanks, because having poison ivy on the inside sounds like that would be a real bad idea. So, gonna advise against that for sure. Would be interesting science if true, though. So, I also often think about like mosquitoes and their role in the world. Like, they are one of the number one killers because of malaria, and they can transfer all sorts of diseases. Same with ticks. Like, if I could eliminate ticks and mosquitoes, I would. But it's hard to say what that would do to the frog population and the possum population in theory, as, you know, food supplies are important for the animals in which, you know, we engage with and are part of a key ecosystem. But at the same time, fuck those bugs. Or the mosquitoes being bugs and ticks being arachnids. Sorry for anyone with arachnophobia, making it just that much worse. Ticks are just mean, though, especially as Lyme disease progresses and continues to get worse. Like, a current strain of Lyme disease can cause people to become allergic to meat. And that would be horrendous and devastating for me personally, as, you know, diabetes and carbs and whatnot. And vegetables just happen to be carbs. So, it's wild. Oh, uh, I had meant to mention that there was some railroad ties back a ways, like way further than I would have expected them to have landed. And they're probably worth getting out, but that's going to be a bit of effort. Might have to be today because it's so warm. But we've got my work cut out for me getting stuff out of the creek. So I've got the plastic over in the side there, and then a plastic bag just past where we are. But yeah, like, you can see some of the like flooding damage and how that plays through here. It looks really well trod, but it's actually just the water beating it down. So it's tricky when you're just trying not to slip and fall. In snow, walking like a penguin, or in ice, having that like dedicated like back forth motion, like keeping your knees fairly. Oh yeah. But in that moment, it was set up to be almost like a cartoon getting a rake in the face. But if you actually just step forward again quickly, you can add more weight and it will even out. It's how people do the whole thing where they walk on a teeter-totter. But that piece of wood was helpful. I put it there specifically, but hadn't actually walked over it like that till today. Same with this. Uh, the actual railroad tie got washed way further than I had expected, so it lives somewhere else right now. um, but yeah, thank you all for coming. Thank you for watching another episode of Backyard Progression. I appreciate you all. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and check out my Twitch at twitch.tv/BronwynKenku. And I hope you all have a lovely time. Over there currently, I'm going to be playing Fantasy Life, especially hyped because of the new announcement that there will be a sequel, finally, so many years later. But thank y'all for watching, and I will take a quick break and then be over on that. So, see you there.